So this is a conversation about the error budgets that we are looking to try and set up. And as I was just saying, I'm trying to, well, at the beginning, let's just set a goal for the meeting so that we know what we're going to be working towards today. So from my perspective, I'm very keen to know what we need to do to help the product teams use this for prioritization. Like, how can we make this more useful? And how do you envision this being used in the process? So Jackie, I'm not sure if there's a specific goal you have in mind.
Yeah, so at the highest level, each month product goes through and we have a variety of sensing mechanisms, and sensing mechanisms are different feelers that product managers use to go through and prioritize various issues in our backlog. And those issues are then assigned to engineers to work on, and then they get delivered out of our milestone. And I'm going through that very basic description so that we can understand how error budgets will become a part of that sensing mechanism process. So today we use things like technical account management feedback. We use product marketing feedback. We use analyst feedback. And what I'm hoping is that we can use these error budgets, which are these availability percentages and these downtime minutes, as a way to indicate whether or not our infra dev issues are being prioritized adequately, or security issues or availability issues or performance issues are getting scheduled at the right frequency. So if I had an error budget, I feel like I would be able to advise Tao, Darren, James, and Dove that our infra dev issues, which are the verified teammates, the verified product managers, that we need to either schedule availability, infra dev, or performance issues more frequently. And today, I would have to say, looking at the error budget, that we're not doing that, because our error budget is way over the allocated 20 minutes that we're supposed to be. I think we're at 13 hours right now, which is significantly over what the budget is supposed to be. And so that guidance is, if we were supposed to be at 20 minutes, we should be prioritizing and potentially doing way more prioritization of features, like features or bug fixes or technical debt, or even complete dedication around scaling enhancements in the verified stage.
So you see this as a way of giving you some information before the planning takes place for the next milestone of what should be considered in scope, and it's just another one of those indicators for you as to what type of work to choose.
Absolutely. And hopefully it can be proactive so that we can start thinking through like different ways to, like, I know that these are lagging metrics, but then hopefully we can find ways to think proactively about.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that that it is a lagging indicator, because it's about what has happened over the past 30 days. And I think in terms of being proactive, it's about having perhaps a process, or I guess a process for looking at the dashboards and seeing if there's anything happening in real time that is concerning. So looking over the past 1 or 2 days instead of over the past 30 days. But again, that's still lagging to a certain extent. But what we have found is we use a series of indicators in scalability, and what we have found is that by looking at past trends, you can then start to see that perhaps there is certain problems coming up that you might need to be thinking about. But I'm not quite sure if that's going to be in scope for the work of error budgets, given that this is just supposed to be a lagging indicator for now. But I saw Marin unmuted there briefly.
Yeah, I had 2 items. One is about, do we even know why we are talking about 20-minute budgets? That's one. And another one I just wanted to mention is that maybe we should walk before we run. And I agree, Jackie, fully agree with you. This is a lagging indicator, but we are lagging 13 hours. Let's get into the minutes territory, and then we can talk about that situation. And, you know, this is going to take a couple of months. It's not going to be a fast one. Not everyone is going to have the same level at the same time. So it's also a culture change in how we do these type of developments. And the culture changes are the ones that take the longest to propagate. So in order for us to be able to talk about the leading indicators, we also first need to understand what we are doing right now, that we are maybe doing wrong, or we poorly, not wrong, but poorly, and that we could do better, and so on. And over time, as this becomes a part of our regular dictionary, like it is, for example, you're talking with TAMs, you're talking with analysts, and so on, it is going to be much easier for us to figure out what the leading indicator can be, right? And that could be something that we in infrastructure do to figure out, like Rachel mentioned, scalability has a couple of things that we use as a prediction, and that is kind of now leading us towards those things. But it took us a year to get to a point where we feel a bit more comfortable about this. And we're only a team of 6, right, Rachel? 7, 6, 6, 7. Imagine doing that across all of engineering product. It's gonna just take time. So I want to take a step back and then talk maybe about why 20 minutes and what does this mean to us, because this is being recorded and I don't know whether everyone understands. We have a target of 99.95 availability of GitLab.com over a period of 30 days. And this is something that we mention to our customers. Is not yet a contractual item, right? Like it's not there in the contract yet, but we are being asked more and more about our guarantees. 99.95 roughly translates to about 22 minutes of not being down, but service not being fully available. And this is why we are talking about the 20-minute budget across all of the platforms. So this is not 20-minute budget for every single stage. No, 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 this is across all of the platform. And this is also important because some teams will have zero spend because they might not have enough usage or they're really that good, which is possible. Some teams are going to have like higher budget consumption, which is because they're very popular and people are doing, or customers are doing things that we didn't anticipate them to do and so on. And that also allows us to target those areas a bit more. And overall, what's important is that we are seeing a trend towards being, going back to being stable and going back to, trend over time being that we are always around the 20-minute downtime. Do we want to go better than that? Sure, we can do that, but we are over optimizing them, right? And maybe we can then focus more on shipping more features and being a bit more relaxed about the work we do. But at the same time, we definitely shouldn't be around 13-hour mark that we are at right now.
And this is where you can tier service too, and you can charge more for those highly available, lower downtimes. And in my previous companies, I've seen tiered service for less downtime, and having those offerings be scaled that way, because it does require more resources. And if people want to pay for that, then you can offer that.
Exactly, right? Like, for example, we have our shared runners, and they are in the whole bucket of all the other runners that we have. We can be more inventive in that and charge more for runners that are more stable. Again, that becomes a discussion of, are we then going to offer a service that is not stable? Well, no, not really, because we still want to give this not bare line, but baseline, right, to everyone, and then say, you want on top of this, you can pay extra and we can offer you extra. But this is like a long-term strategy. So this is why it's important for us to start with, this is not small, this is a large change, but it's something that we want to practice all together and get better at understanding what we are doing here. Sorry, right. This was a long intro, but I thought it was important to note.
No, I really appreciate the context set. And I know that like I keep pushing us toward this vision setting, and I can tell that like that's my product manager coming out. I'm excited about error budgets because I feel like this is a really important and great revolutionary tool for our product managers to be more aware about becoming a SaaS first company. We're so used to building for the self-managed audience, and something like availability, something like performance, and having an error budget is a tool that really helps product managers become aware of what availability means to them. And I think that this will be really helpful, even as they start to prioritize features that are about becoming available on .com.
So as you've said there, product managers are more used to at the moment building for the self-managed instances. What steps do you think we can take to effectively introduce this or effectively take it further?
Well, I think right now we're setting, like on the product side, we're setting an OKR for Q2 around these error budgets. So I think that's a top-down step. I think from a rollout perspective, there does need to be maybe an AMA on the tactical front, like what are error budgets, and like an education side of how to use this, and what does an error budget mean, even maybe some remedial education on what is availability, because I think that part we may take for granted on what is uptime, what is downtime, what does that mean to a customer, what does that mean to an end user, what is the difference between 9.5 and 5.9s, because I think that those nuances in a customer's perspective, especially for an enterprise customer, in the SaaS language, are nuanced but very different, and they can be aspirational for us. Like our current goal of 99.95 and 5.9s of availability are a large gap, right? And so right now our 20 minutes of downtime I think is very realistic, and what our error budgets are geared toward is something that we can educate people on for this quarter, and I think that's a very tangible next step for us to take, and I can help facilitate that with the product team. As far as the next stages, as far as like how broad of a rollout we're going to be doing with the product organization. Right now we have like all of .com on the product PI page with error budgets. So like the product organization is aware that this is a PI that we're tracking, a performance indicator that we're tracking. And then they're aware that we are going to start instrumenting stages, and we want to put this inside of our Sisense dashboards for product managers to begin tracking against. So we need to kind of figure out how to get this from Grafana into like the places where we're already tracking product metrics. So that's also a next step that we might want to iterate toward.
So I suppose that is an action to take next, is to help get this information into those dashboards, because as far as I understand, the organization is quite driven from those metrics, and if they're not available to see there, then it becomes harder to have it be part of the process.
It's definitely a hurdle as far as a different place. It's an extra click that could inhibit adoption. Of course, like if the top-down mandate is you're going to use an error budget and you need to consume it, and if we put it on the PI page for people to go, it's in the handbook, and that's a single source of truth that people are going to go to, then it's not an extra click. It's just a different place that they have to go to. The more that we can consolidate into Sisense, the better for usability, for sure.
Okay, so the things I heard there were getting it into Sisense for sure, having an AMA of some description to help introduce that to everyone and have it be quite broad. So I'm just noting that.
Yeah. And on the L&D front, like the learning and development side, I can help create content for the product management audience. So let me know how I can help you on that front.
And then from our side, I mean, we have the first iteration of this available on the dashboards, and we will continue to iterate over that to add more, so that the error budgets cover more aspects of the infrastructure than is what is covered currently. But that's something that we'll continue to iterate on. I don't think we'll ever really be finished there, but we'll just continue to make the data richer and richer. So that is an action, but because we've already recorded that in our issues, I'm not going to note that on the agenda here. So that's already given us some very specific actions that we can take from this meeting in order to move this forward. Yeah, Marin?
I had a question about, Rachel, whether we should maybe do, I know we have only 5 to 10 minutes, but maybe we could do a bit of an exercise with Jackie, just where we put her on the spot here, share a screen, and then like see what kind of actions would you as a product manager seeing this overwhelming dashboard do, right? Like whether you would get completely confused, what kind of questions would you ask, and what kind of questions would you ask to your engineering manager, which is what I'm kind of mostly curious here about. I don't know, Rachel, do you think that's useful?
Well, I think since we've already got firm actions to take, I think we do have time to go through that, and I'm very interested in that as well. Yeah. Yeah, you're still muted there.
Are you seeing the?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So I would be looking for the budget spent. And by the way, y'all, I'm red green colorblind. So this is something that I did mention before, and I didn't know that there was color coding on this until I think Bob told me. But it was funny because I was like, oh, I had no idea that was there. So I would be looking at the number here for budget spent, and I would read this budget spent here and what that would indicate. I'd probably click this link to kind of read a little bit more about what error budgets are. Something that we might want to do is record a little video that's like 5 minutes about what error budgets are for somebody who's brand new to this as a quick onboarding, just as a note. And this availability number, since I know that the stated availability is 99.95, it might be helpful to have the targets somewhere stated, because there isn't targets anywhere on here. So all I know is what current state is, but there isn't any evidence of what a target is. So currently, like,
that's a really good one. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, like, all of the product PIs that I track toward, I always have a target stated so that I know how I'm trending toward my stated target. It would be helpful to have a target here. I know that Rachel, you and I discussed having a percentage in a future iteration at some point.
Well, that's why they're both like the availability percentage is there as well as the budget spent.
Yeah. And I like the percentage of the budget spent, as in like how much of your budget has been consumed. So like,
oh, so you mean flipping the percentage the other way around?
Yeah.
So instead of availability being outage, but a better word for outage.
Yeah. Or I still feel like the percent availability is valuable, because we would need to know if we're at the 99.95, but like, what percent of your overage are you? So if you have 20 minutes, it would be interesting to know how much over my budget am I. So like, how much in debt am I? how I think is kind of what I want to know. Then that would be an interesting metric to then report back to my engineering team to show them the severity of my overage. So
No, that makes
Just-
sense. Like rather than just saying, well, it's 20 hours, it would be to say, well, as a percentage, we're like 300 times, like 300% of our budget has been spent here. So this is not
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
I want to know, like, how bad is it? Because like 13 hours, it seems like a lot, but whenever I think about 20 minutes in my head, I know like, okay, 20 minutes is how much I'm supposed to be spending in my month. Also, nothing says my time horizon here. Last 28 days here. Okay, so that's helpful.
But you had to look for that, which was
I did.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard presenting this on this dashboard in the way you use Sisense, for example, right? Like in Sisense, this is much clearer, and this dashboard is not made for that, right? So that's another data point we have now.
Even something simple like saying a budget spent past 28 days. It's another 2 words that goes in the title and you understand. Or error budgets past 28 days.
Right.
3 words. Yeah, not 2 words.
Yeah. Because after looking at this, the kind of things that I would do is I would check this on a monthly basis, because it's going to be a part of my PI update to the product organization. I then do a Slack update as a product manager. I then do a Slack update to my engineering team, and it informs my monthly prioritization or my quarterly prioritization for my features or bugs. And I would let my team know, hey, this is how many users we've had changed. And by the way, we're 300% over our budget for availability. So we're not going to do any new features. And we're also going to be doing a rapid action. And like, like I need to let them know all of the things that are changing. And that's the kind of update that would come out of this sort of information on a regular cadence. As a result. And then of course I would like to link them to this or do like a screen capture of the data that's changed. So the kind of, that's the sort of update that's typically coming out of product data.
And that monthly check, you would do that on the same day each month?
Typically, that's how I used to do it whenever I was a PM, and that's how typically some PMs do it in the verify stage at least.
That makes sense.
An additional question for you here is, do you need trends, right? Like, do you need historical data for this data? I know this is historical data already, but for example, for you to understand how things have been developing in the past months, to know whether the investment you made or are making continuously is actually making things better or worse. I don't know if this is technically feasible to do this in one dashboard, but the point is I'm looking to see like this, whether we should be thinking about this or not.
Would the trend information not become available through Sisense if we're pumping it that way? Like this remains the current like snapshot of now, and then in Sisense you get the trend.
So Sisense
Right.
will do that organically.
If Sisense is something we can do, then yes, I guess. So yeah.
Trend will be very important because we would want to know if prioritizing performance and for dev and availability issues actually influences these sorts of metrics. Given that they are lagging metrics, it's really important that we're investing in the right things. And what would be really interesting is if in fact we do prioritize these fixes and they don't enhance it, then that shows that there's some other root cause analysis that needs to be done. So trends could be really important. But you're absolutely right in that it'll trend automatically once we get into Sisense.
Well, I think that's been super helpful to see the way that you view this and what you would do with the information as a result of seeing it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Richard, just one other question before we leave. So I'm assuming you would not be looking at anything else on this dashboard. Like if you're talking about this specific dashboard, you as a product manager were likely not going to go in depth, try to understand what's happening there. Call me a naive engineering manager, but asking a question still.
Like any of the processing events or API.
Yeah, like API request rates or any of that, like to understand the volumes you're dealing with, or to help you maybe make a different type of decision when you're working on your new features and so on, right? Like, for example, if you know that you're handling this many requests per minute or something, would that affect your decision on how the feature is built? A new one, for example.
Yes, but
or would you expect engineering manager to do that for you?
Depends on the engineering manager.
Good answer.
I would say that if the information is readily available, like looking at all of these charts in here, if I had a tutorial on what all these charts meant and could trace it back to the table inside of GitLab and what that meant in the product, like I see some of them have that information, then that would influence my decision making. But I would need to study it more in order to like help me make decisions like that. Typically though, that usually means like that's a spike for an engineer to do inside of I declare a problem. So here the availability is declared a problem. There's a problem statement that our error budget is over. We need to do some root cause analysis as to why we're over budget. Here's some charts that indicate that, hey, our queries are going insane. These might be some areas to look into, which could be identified either by me per this chart or the engineering manager, because there's some trends here that indicate significant dips or overages. So I can see that just by looking at it. Like I would just link them, be like, hey, these look different. Can you look at them? But I don't know if other PMs would do that though. I feel like I'm different.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for this. This has been really helpful. And I think in terms of next steps, I'm aware of the time. So just in terms of next steps, we've got the 2 actions that we can take there. From the scalability perspective, we'll continue to make our iterative changes to the dashboards themselves. But I think I will go ahead and raise these 2 issues about getting this into SciSense and producing an AMA for this. And then we can continue the conversation on those issues.
And then please just ping me about, we can co-author the deck. We can do anything around content, and I can help schedule with Christy to find time for a product team. Just please let me know what you need from me, okay?
Thank you so much. Thanks for being part of this.
You bet. Anytime.
Really appreciate your time.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You too. You're doing great work. Bye, y'all.
Bye.